Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Coffee and Cannoli. I'm back once again with Campo Reviews over, I don't know which side he's on because it's reversed. We also have a special guest today, my cat De Niro. He wanted to join in and be part of this. So, hey, why not? He's not going to add much to the conversation, but, maybe we'll get those viewers numbers up.
Hey, he likes Stray. He's getting ready for Stray.
Right? It's that time of year for him. So, what we're going to do this on this episode is Campo and we're going to go through our top 5 favorite arcade cabinets. So, arcade cabinets, for those of you who may not know, back in the 80s, there was a huge boom of basically, I guess you would call it a storefront, I guess, where you would go in, people would gather, and they'd have these big cabinets of basically where you would play video games, where you would deposit quarters or coins or whatever. And those were arcade cabinets. You've probably seen them in shows like Stranger Things and stuff like that take place in the 80s. So growing up in the 80s, we decided we'd do an episode on this. So we're going to go through our top 5, and then we're going to go through some honorable mentions and discuss some of our favorite arcade memories. So Campo, do you want to start off on that?
Oh, what? Yeah, I gotta go first. Okay, well, hold on while I open this.
My channel, my rules.
Okay, just so you guys know, you've definitely seen these because if you've ever been to a Dave and Buster's or a movie theater, they have,
they still have these.
They're like big, they're like giant cell phones.
He left.
He left. Wow.
He was done with it.
Mascot for a minute.
Right?
All right, so I got my number 5 here, Pac-Man, the tabletop edition.
Yeah, that's the same as mine. Except mine is Ms. Pac-Man.
Okay, well, Ms. Pac-Man is better.
Yeah, it was a better game.
My experience is with Pac-Man, but yeah. I do agree that Ms. Pac-Man is a better game.
Yeah, I had to add Ms. Pac-Man just because the mazes were different. Every maze was not the same maze. So I think that's what
it's a far superior game.
It is graphically, even like, not that they were more than 2 pixels, but graphically it was a better game too. What was your number 4 then?
Well, also she's kind of hot, right?
Well, hey, Miss Pac-Man, those legs, eh?
It's the bow. My number 4 is Marvel vs. Capcom.
Good choice. My number 4 was Outrun, the sit-down arcade where you actually sat down in the driver's seat and would drive.
Okay, I'm feeling that one. So speaking of driving, my number 3 is Initial D.
Oh, that's a deep one.
Yeah, that's I probably played that for a lot of hours.
Yeah. Number 3 for me is NBA Jam. A lot of quarters were thrown into that machine.
You know what? I'm so mad because when you said that, I completely remembered a game. So
yeah. If you want to put it on honorable, or if you want to change your list around,
I'll add it to honorable. You know what?
Right.
I already got this list, but here we go. So I'm on 2, right?
Yep, number 2.
Time Crisis 2.
Good call. My number 2 was Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition.
Okay, well, that kind of goes with my number 1 because to me, this is my favorite arcade game of all time. I've definitely spent the most money on it, and I think it's by far the best fighting game that's ever been made, and it's Street Fighter Third Strike.
Really? Third Strike? You would say Third Strike is the best Street Fighter?
Yeah.
Best fighting game, period.
You have, it has a whole added level of like skill because you can parry. So yeah. You have to be able, I knew guys that you would tap forward when the move was coming. And like, for example, Chun-Li does a kick where it's like 18 kicks in like 1 second. So you would have to be like tap, 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 and to parry every single one of them. And like, I don't know.
It takes a lot of skill to play that one. I agree. My number 1 is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game.
That will be on my thing. That is a really good choice.
Yeah, that was my number 1. That is the one I spent the most amount of money on. It's the only arcade cabinet I've ever finished from end to end.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair list. I like your list.
Yeah, yours is good too. You had some deep cuts in there. I noticed we are missing a few, but I'm sure we'll get to that in some of the honorable mentions. What were some of your honorable mentions?
Okay, well,
and we can dive into them. Why?
I'll give you this one first because to me, I can't believe I didn't put this on my list. It was a split cabinet, and it was NBA Showtime and NFL Blitz. And I honestly, like, if we're just going favorites, this might even be my all-time favorite. But it's definitely close. It's just I was so okay with my list that I like when we had the chance to change it there, I was like, you know what, I'll keep it. But I
Yeah,
played NBA Showtime so much. Like I was thinking NBA Jam in my head when you said it, and
right.
that would be an honorable mention for me too. That's on my list. But
Yeah.
when you said it, all of a sudden I remembered Showtime, and I was like, oh my gosh, what the
Showtime was the successor to Jam.
yeah, where it was
But
like 2-on-2 with, but it
yeah,
has like 3D graphics. It was like NFL Blitz.
yeah. And NFL Blitz, it started in the arcades before it actually came to the home console. It
Yeah.
came, I think, for the PS2, it came out for. There was an NFL Blitz for the PS2 or PS3. I
I
can't
think there
remember.
was NFL Blitz on Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah, there was. It was Blitz the League that came out on the 360.
Yeah, well, that was the way better one. But
Yeah.
and that was after the point that it had faded away because they tried to relive Blitz so many times and it just kept failing, or it was the same exact game, right? And
I
like,
think I think with Blitz 2, they didn't have the NFL licensing, so maybe that might have been part of its because NBA had their licensing, but NFL didn't.
yeah, and after I think the second NFL Blitz game, I think they lost the rights to use players' names, so they could have the teams, but they couldn't use the names. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like stupid at that point. But I just remember NBA Showtime had the stupid NBC song. I know. Basketball and yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I think too. Wasn't there an NHL one as well? There was like a 2-on-2 or a
There
3-on.
was, and it was similar to Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, but I don't remember what it was called. Like not even a little bit.
Yeah, because here in Canada, hockey is like a big part of our.
Listen, I mean, well, we should. Okay, well, let's get some more lists going first.
Yeah,
and then we'll
absolutely.
talk about some stuff.
I have some of classics like you got to add Galaga in there. You got to add Space Invaders, like the old school arcade cabinets, because if it wasn't for those originally, we would have never had arcade cabinets to begin with. I put 1942 on there. That
1942 was my number one right here.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
1942, it was it's a classic shoot 'em up, right? Like, it's a bottom to top scrolling shooting, like it's a shooter basically. And, that was a predecessor for all your shooting. R-Type was another one that was like, that's a side scrolling shooter, but like Thunder Force, I think was another one that was all these side scrolling shooters. You have to add those, right?
I think well, either way, it doesn't matter which way it scrolls. The shooter is the most underrated like game fun wise at an arcade, because you would always go and no one would ever be playing those games.
Yeah.
But then there would always be like one or two guys that would sit there for the whole time and never leave those machines and try to beat it, because those are games you could actually
Operation Wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you could actually beat those games.
Yeah, with enough quarters.
If you played anything else, like most games at an arcade that were story based, which if you notice, none of mine have stories.
No,
I never played that kind of stuff really, because you'll never finish it. You'll never get to the end, or you'll run out of time. Like, you know what I mean?
Quarters.
You'll have to leave. Yeah, exactly. And I mean that was kind of like the issue when they started introducing cards, like pay cards, because then you could bring so much money with you.
Yeah. Dave and Buster's, the Dave and Buster's, the one we have here in Woodbridge. I remember they had the Virtua Racing, and they had like 20 cars lined up. Mm-hmm. And the lineup for that was always so long. It would cost you like $5 per play. Like, it wasn't cheap.
Oh yeah, that's like I said, we'll get into that one. I got some stories of that, but yeah Dave and Buster's is weirdly a combination of cheap and expensive, because they'll catch you with the cheap games and then they'll throw in one that's so expensive, and then you go to play it and you're like, oh crap, $10 for this one game.
Yeah, Dave and Buster's was very much. I only had one fighting game because I wanted to leave it at one. So you have to mention games like X-Men Children of the Atom, mm-hmm. which was a fantastic game.
I have the X-Men 92 on here. Is that right. Children of the Atom?
I think that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was the X-Men. There was X-Men versus Street Fighter. There was Marvel versus the original Marvel versus Capcom, Marvel versus Street Fighter. There were so many of these like arcade cabinets that had like these fighting games. But the problem, like you said, with fighting games was there was always such a huge lineup to play these games. And I remember you had to put your quarter down in order mm-hmm. to get next play. And sometimes that line of quarters was like 20 people deep, because there was always one guy that would like beat everybody.
Oh yeah. And it would get bad, because eventually someone would knock off the good kid, but then that guy would go on a run. And it was like, then you had to get back in the line of like 30 people to get your chance again. And
because we usually give a rematch. if
It's
they
hard
lost.
to get practice if you never get to play, right? So okay, if we're just throwing out fight, did you say your fighting game?
Yeah, there was you got to throw out Mortal Kombat in there too for what it did for the fighting genre, I guess, as well. The Mortal Kombat series kind of revolutionized
I'll
it.
allow it. I'm not a Mortal Kombat fan at all. I on my Sega list, I have it
Yeah,
because I think at that era, that was like crazy what they were doing. It was insane that you did all those things. Like the graphics were really cool and the blood and like Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 are just like special.
the mocap, like just
Yeah.
the mocap alone in those
But
games were
then
fantastic.
it just became a button masher until like I don't to me I still find it hard to play that game because everyone's just like smashing the thing. There's the combos are so stupid.
Yeah, there's more skill involved in playing Street Fighter than there is in Mortal
100%.
Kombat.
Street Fighter is a far better game than Mortal Kombat. And you know I get it.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat people don't they'll always disagree.
Yeah.
And I don't hate on it. If you like it, you like it, right? But to me, I just found like it took so much skill for me to learn how to be good at Street Fighter where me and my friends will just put on Mortal Kombat and we'd all be good at it in like 10 seconds.
Yeah. And the thing with Street Fighter 2, there was just so many different iterations of the game. Like there was 5, 6 different versions of Street Fighter 2. So you'd always find a Street Fighter cabinet that was free because there's so many different versions. So if somebody's over on the Hyper Tournament edition, or like you said, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, you'll always find like Tournament Edition or something.
Turbo, there was so many games. Okay, so
you'll find it.
I'll throw out some fighting ones that I have here since we're on that. Capcom versus SNK. I love that game.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's because I also, which I have on here, I love King of Fighters. I just got the new one. King of Fighters 98 was a great game in the arcade. Tekken 3 was awesome in the arcade. I think that's all I had for fighters because you said all the rest of them.
You probably need to add Virtua Fighter into that as well.
Yeah, okay, you know what? And that's a good point because when I was a kid and we used to first start going to arcades, Virtua Fighter was the biggest thing because it was the first time graphics had been done like that.
The polygonal kind of. Agreed.
It was like a whole new thing, and the racing game was like that too. Sega, it was NASCAR.
The Daytona
USA.
Which they ported to the Saturn after. Well, I mean, since we're on the topic of Sega, we got to talk about Sega and some of their arcade cabinets because they had some downright classics. They had Altered Beast, Golden Axe, Shinobi, like Outrun, Space Harrier. Like they had all these, like in the early to mid 80s, Sega was the company making all these fantastic arcade games. Nintendo had the home corner market with the home console, but Sega had the arcades at the time.
Nintendo didn't get a lot of love in the beginning in arcades, even though they had some good ones. Donkey Kong, and
the Mario Brothers,
the
1v1 where you had to hit the turtle shells, which was fun. It was like for an early arcade game.
They you know what? They were good games, but they just once they hit the home market, they gave up on making arcade games. And Sega, the big reason why I think that they went downhill is they were pushing into too many outlets at once. They were still trying to pump out huge amounts of arcade games while they were making home consoles. And then they had too many consoles coming out so close to each other.
Yeah.
And then the attachments, like...
I think also probably one of the best Sega arcade games. I think it was Sega. Was it Did Sega do House of the Dead?
Yeah, House of the Dead.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's a good game.
That's another one.
That's
Time
a rail
Crisis,
shooter.
I think. Yeah, Time Crisis 2. Wasn't that Sega as well?
I don't know if it was Sega. It might have been Capcom Time Crisis.
Maybe. Yeah,
or Konami, Sega, one of those.
Sega had some we had to touch on that. Like Sega had some really good arcade cabinets. Where was your arcade that you kind of always went to?
So for me, so I'll give you a whole story.
Sure.
So I would say my first experience were very young at like Palladium, which I don't even know if that still exists anymore.
I don't think so. The one out in Mississauga, right?
Yeah, I believe I went there with some people to use the batting cages like maybe 5 years ago, and that's the last time I ever went there. And then like movie theaters a lot, and lately I only go to Rec Room, but the games there change so often, and it's always so packed with people. Since obviously this is before pre-COVID. Yeah. But the games would be so packed. The lineup sometimes to get on a Street Fighter machine, you were there all forever. So you better win.
Yeah.
But, I would say 90% of my all-time use of arcade machines was at Annex Submarine in Koreatown.
Yeah,
that's where I lived. And they had the Showtime Blitz machine.
Yeah, it's a 20-minute walk for you over there, right?
Yeah. They have that. They had Showtime Blitz. They had 1942. They had Virtua Soccer. They had Capcom versus SNK. They had Initial D Machine, and they had like one or two others. Like, and they was very crammed. Like there was no room. And then a jits table.
Yeah, of course you have to have the jits table there, right?
And it was just like a thick cloud of smoke from like,
everybody
the
was
halfway
smoking.
point up,
Yes,
and people eating subs.
Yeah,
and beef patties.
Yeah, that was the thing for me, was the beef patties. But for me, before university, so during my high school days, there was one down near the Eaton Center, Sunrise Arcade. It was right
I know
next
what
to
you're talking about.
Yeah, it was right next to Sunrise Records. And
it was a big one. It was 2 floors.
It was 2 floors. So that was my initial, like, you know, I used to go to that one all the time while I was in high school. On the weekends, Saturday afternoon, everybody was going to the mall. I was going to the arcade, right? Like, they had some arcades at the Eaton Center as well, but Sunrise Arcade was the one I went to.
Yeah, Eaton Center had one in the actual Eaton Center, I think.
Yeah, in the Eaton Center, where the new food court is now, I think.
Yeah.
The other one I used to go to, which is near my house during high school, was a place called Rena's Billiards. And this was, like you said, that same, it's near my place, about a 50-minute walk from where my parents used to live at Jana Wilson. And like you said, thick cloud of smoke everywhere. It was a bar. It wasn't like a billiard. It was a billiard hall, not an arcade, right? So here I am, a 16-year-old kid walking into like a billiard hall with like everybody smoking and like, you know, big tatted up guys. And they're just like looking at the 16-year-old little punk going in to play the Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter machines in the arcade. For me, though, my biggest thing was when I was in university, we had a little arcade room, and it had X-Men Children of the Atom and a whole bunch of pinball tables. And that's what really set me onto arcades, was they had the X-Men Children of the Atom. And I got so good at that game, I missed so many classes because of Children of the Atom. I think we got a thunderstorm happening.
I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the thunderstorm is cutting.
Something right
yeah,
now.
yeah. The thunderstorm is cutting out my internet here.
Okay, let's go, internet. We got to finish this one.
Yeah.
So
here we go.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Wasn't sure if we were gonna go all out, but like I if we get technical difficulties, we'll survive.
Yeah.
You know, but we'll try our best here. I wasn't sure if we were including everything in an arcade, so I just went for cabinets, and I think you did too. So I think that's fair. But like, big shout out to pinball machines, and like some of those fun little games, like the basketball shooting and stuff like that.
Oh
like,
yeah, the claw machines.
Yeah,
like
there's some great pinball machines.
Even going like later, like in the last maybe 10 years, you had the advent of like Guitar Hero. People don't realize that started in the arcades. The drum machine, Dance Revolution, right?
That was at Annex. That was like good luck getting on that.
Yeah, because that was like the huge thing at the time, and that I think led to like Nintendo with the motion controls, the Just Dance, that kind of stuff. So it really, arcades, people don't realize how much they actually influenced the way the home consoles are now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people too will like. I don't like them, but a lot of people will scoff at the dancing games that come out and like, who plays this? But there was a period of time when Dance Revolution first came out that for like 5 years, that was the coolest. Like, I never played it, but everyone, you would go there and we would just get drunk at sometimes and go to arcades and just sit and watch the kids that play.
Yeah, some of these kids had like serious talent.
Yeah, there would be like all these like 20-year-old guys that would come in and just like destroy the machine. They would play with their hands. There was one girl that used to be so good. She would literally lift one leg up and hold onto the back thing and play with one foot and one hand.
Jesus.
On like the fastest thing. It was crazy.
That's insane. That's insane. I've seen guys go YouTube some videos of like people playing Dance Revolution. Your mind's gonna get blown on this stuff. But yeah, like for me, it was never my thing because I'm a terrible dancer. I have no sense of rhythm, so I just embarrass myself on Dance Revolution.
I never wanted to get sweaty. I'm just gonna be honest.
And like, that too.
You're guaranteed to like sweat like a monster there.
Yeah. So yeah. Anything else you want to add before we?
I got I almost swore. I got
whatever.
Bunch, okay.
Yeah, go for it.
This is a combo one again. Bubble Bobble and Puzzle Bobble.
Yep.
Like just the song.
Yep.
That's Bust a Move. Yeah. You know, Bust a Move is great. Bust a Move is one of my favorite games that I never play. like I never play it, but like
Yeah.
as soon as I do play it, I'm like, oh my god, I love this game.
Bust a Move was on when I got my Game Boy. That was the one I played a lot.
Yeah, that game is awesome.
Yeah.
Cruising, the whole Cruising series, Cruising World, Cruising USA, they
Yeah.
came out first on arcade, and it blew my friggin' mind. And then when it came out on Nintendo 64, I was so happy to get it, and gosh, did it suck.
Yes. The only good thing that came out of those ones were the unlockables.
Yeah, which was well, there's a Mario Kart now in arcades, and it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the one where you sit in the little car,
The Jeep?
and it's the Jeep.
That's a good one.
That was awesome. Turtles in Time.
Yeah.
I would have put Turtles in Time on my list, but it's going to be on a different list that will be coming. I definitely invested a lot more hours to it on console.
Yeah. There was a whole whack of good Ninja Turtle games on home console. If you want to stick in that vein, then you also got to add games like the Avengers game, which was the 4-player.
Yeah.
There was, what were some of the other ones? The Simpsons game.
I was so close to putting it on my list, but I never played it enough to be like, this game was special to me, but it is a good game.
It was hard to find.
Yeah.
It was hard to find an arcade that had it because it was
the home console version of it is not that bad.
No, I think the thing with that was because it was the size almost of 2 cabinets, it was hard to find a place.
4 players. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if people were going at the time, they would have gone with Ninja Turtles instead of the Simpsons at the time.
They have like a sort of remake of Turtles in Time now, where it's so similar in the way that the game progresses and the way it looks and like the level design, but it's not really Turtles in Time. It's just I think it might even be called Turtles in Time. But
I think there's one coming out called Shredder's Revenge.
Yes, which I know about that. But this game, they had it at Rec Room, and like we used to play it a lot. But the issue we would have with it is because of the 4 players, when you're adults, which is like, it's funny because now that's what this demographic, that's what it's aimed at. That's the demographic that these things are aimed at.
The nostalgia factor.
They're not even trying to get kids in arcades anymore. They're trying to get you to come back to your arcade. But like, we couldn't fit 4 of us. Like one guy had to stand completely sideways on the machine and like look over like, because he couldn't fit.
I'm 5'10", 225 pounds. So I'm a little bit bigger than average, but like you put 4 of us like that are my size together, no way. There's no way you're fitting all 4 of us. Like
it's not.
That's the only thing, right? And that's, I think, where the advent of couch co-op came from. That's why
it makes sense.
That's when that Turtles game was ported over to the NES, which was probably one of the best ports I've ever seen.
Yep.
And that's where we all started playing. I had the multi-tap where you plug into your NES.
Yeah. I had that for the PlayStation.
Yeah. I think one of us that we both missed was Double Dragon.
You know what's funny? I did miss that.
Yeah. I just thought of that. I was thinking, shit, Double Dragon. Like, how do we miss Double Dragon?
Well, what's the other one that's like Double Dragon? Is Streets of Rage?
There was Streets of Rage and there was Final Fight. Final Fight was like Nintendo's, like Capcom.
Yeah.
And Streets of Rage was Sega's, right?
Streets of Rage was better.
The Streets of Rage was better. That was a more faithful home port as well with the Sega Genesis, as opposed to the Final Fight. Levels were missing on Final Fight. The fidelity wasn't all quite there, but it's still a great game. Final Fight.
Well, okay, so I got 2 more. One of them. So same thing with 1942. I knew this guy. I don't know if you know him, but he used to live around us, Reese.
Oh, I know Reese. He went to school with my brother.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And well, he lived at the end of the street, and so did you guys on the other end. But he was the one that 1942. He never got off the machine. We would be there for hours playing everything else, and he would just keep playing that. And so there was another game that they used to have that he used to do, and he got me into both of them. It's Metal Slug. Metal Slug was dope on the arcade because it was like a shooter but with people, which was like at that time it was like a new thing, right? Because it wasn't a beat 'em up. It was a side-scrolling shooter,
but instead of a ship, you had a person. My introduction to Metal Slug was on the Sega Saturn. I had Metal Slug 2 or whatever it was on Saturn, and like I put so many hours. I thought to myself, why go to the arcade if I have it at that point, right? But yeah, no, Metal Slug is a good choice. What else you got?
This game is probably one of the games I sank the most hours into. It's just not like the love of my life when it comes to this, and this is all Palladium. At this point, Rampage.
Yes.
Rampage, like, oh my gosh. I must have played that for so many hours because we always wanted to beat it. and you never beat an arcade
No,
game. Like it's so
there's
rare that you have.
147 levels or something
Yeah,
like that.
you're not. They do that on purpose because it's to steal your quarters.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, man. Quarters used to be worth money. Like now, you go to an arcade, you're paying $1 for some machines.
Yeah,
$2.
some of them it's $2 per play, basically.
Yeah. So like,
well, here they take advantage of it because in Canada we have the $2 coin, so it's like, hey, I'm going to charge $2 per game.
Yeah, and they will. And now, like with the credit system, like I said, I'll be drunk, and I'm like, yeah, I'll load up my card again. You guys want to do $50 more? Okay. And
all right,
then, like,
sure.
Then you're like, oh crap, I just spent $50
and that lasts,
playing basketball.
What, an hour?
Yeah, at least though at Rec Room you get prizes at the end, like Chuck E. Cheese or what's the other one called?
Shout out to Skee Ball.
Skee Ball, there you go. That's another one we're talking about arcade games. That's one that we missed out on.
Yeah, like we stuck to strictly gaming cabinets, but like if you go to an arcade, Skee Ball was another one. Like when you were talking about tickets, like so many tickets, so many prizes I would get from Skee Ball. I was pretty good at Skee Ball.
Yeah, we just cranking it out. We were all trying. We went to Rec Room at one point for like every weekend for like 6 months because we wanted to get enough credits to win. They had Nintendo Switches.
Oh, okay.
And then so one of the guys lost his card and he had the most credits of all of us. So we were like, okay, forget it. We're like, it's over. The dream is over.
But you think about that though, the amount of money you'd have to spend at the arcade in order to get enough tickets for the Nintendo Switch, you're probably better off taking the money and just buying the Nintendo.
It's an excuse to go out and drink with your friends.
Good
and then
point.
Have it gives you, you're like, oh, if we keep playing, if we go there every weekend and drink, we could do this too.
Yeah.
But then most of the time we'd end up playing pool and not winning any tickets at all. So you lose out.
Yeah, or jits.
Yeah, you're not winning.
Yeah.
But I mean, arcades don't have the same impact.
No,
I
they
think
don't.
Arcades have like a spectacle type of thing now where, like I said, like Rec Room or Dave and Buster's, you'll go there once a year and you'll hang out and you'll just goof around. You're not really there to be like, maybe we would, but like modern times, I don't think anybody's there.
It's more
really
to
play
socialize.
the games. You're there, you'll play a couple games of something and then you're done.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's playing more now into the nostalgia factor than anything. People now, I guess, between the age group, maybe early 30s to early 50s, the demographic that we're in, I think that's what they're playing. If you notice all the shows that are coming out now, they're garnering towards that nostalgia factor. Everything always has that little bit of nostalgia. Like even my room here, I set it up with the lighting to make it look like an old school arcade.
And I think I was the only person that noticed that.
Right? Like
because Nick didn't notice it and neither did Putty.
No, like it's an old school arcade. Like, I mean, so for me, that's the whole purpose of the lighting, right? So, but yeah, other than that, guys, thanks again for joining us. Campo, before we leave, want to plug your stuff?
Yeah, check me out at campo.reviews on Instagram.
And I'll have the link to RLG Cast on the descriptions as well. So guys, once again, thanks a lot for joining us and we'll see you guys next time.